Good evening, and welcome back. If you are listening from a quiet corner of the world, perhaps beside a softly fading hearth or within the deep stillness of a bedroom, please allow my voice to be a gentle guide tonight. We will not rush this journey. There is no urgency in the story we are about to share. Find your most restful position, allow your shoulders to soften, and your breath to gently deepen. Let the sounds outside the distant world, the worries of the day, all of it become a soft, low hum far away. Tonight, there is nothing for you to solve, nothing to resist. Simply allow your mind to drift back through time, following the line of an ancient, organized silence. We are stepping onto the earliest, softest tracks of history, where an entire world was connected by quiet intention. My voice will be your soft anchor tonight, guiding you along the smooth, ancient rivers of time, where only the memory of order remains. Nothing in tonight's story will disturb your peace. Welcome this evening's stillness, this gentle moment where the day gives way to the deep, slow quiet of the night. Feel the gentle weight of the air around you, soft and unmoving like silk draped across the horizon. With a long, soft breath, allow the rhythm of the evening to settle into the rhythm of your body. Let your breath become as quiet as the falling dusk, slow and deep, filling you with calm and releasing any lingering tension with the faintest whisper of air. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast, moonlit field, the air cool and sweet. The only sound is the gentle, distant night and the soft pulse of your own quiet heart. Before you, a faint straight line disappears into the mist, an ancient myth-like cadence of intention. We are about to step onto that line, tracing the origin of enduring quietness. If these gentle journeys help you rest, you may leave a soft like or subscribe, only if it feels comforting and natural for your night. Before the great, smooth sheets of stone were laid before the foundation was dug, and the deep layers compacted, there was only the whisper of the ancient trackway. In the earliest days of the Italian peninsula, the land was woven not with roads, but with paths. They were the gentle desire lines of shepherds moving flocks to lower pastures, the quiet tracks of early farmers bringing their modest harvests to a small central hearth, the subtle trail of water flowing toward the sea. These were not built things. They were simply worn into the earth by the repetition of gentle footsteps, year after year, century after century. They followed the path of least resistance, curving softly around hills and dipping kindly into valleys guided by the instinct of quiet necessity. Imagine the land covered in a low, gentle mist, illuminated only by the faint light of a crescent moon. As you look out over the ancient landscape, you can just make out these first paths, not as solid lines, but as slight depressions in the dew-covered grass, dark streaks of earth, where the footsteps of countless generations had kept the weeds at bay. They smelled of moist earth, low embers, and the dry scent of distant night. These paths were organic, born of slow movement. The people who used them moved at the pace of their oxen and the speed of their own warm breath. There was no need for haste. The journey was simply a part of life, a long, quiet meditation. The eventual idea of the Roman road did not begin with military strategy or hurried conquest. It began far more simply with a quiet frustration at the softness of the old ways. When the rains came, the paths dissolved into mud, slowing everything to a halt, trapping the gentle exchange of goods. The vision of the road, the true hard Roman road, was the dream of overcoming the slow, seasonal surrender to the earth. It was a deep yearning for a path that remained steady even in the wettest season. The very first Roman road, the Appian Way. The Via Appia started as this quiet, enduring thought. It was the decision to impose order not through force, but through material permanence. The early paths were like memories written in water. The Roman road would be a memory etched in stone. It began with a man named Appius Claudius Caecus, who in the deep silence of 312 BCE held the quiet intention to connect Rome to Capua, far to the south. This was not merely an act of drawing a line on a map. It was an act of profound, enduring faith in the power of stability. The land that was chosen was not the easiest. To make the road straight, the early builders had to confront marshy ground and soft-yielding earth. Yet the choice was made to build straight, to build true, and to build forever. This was the philosophical seed of the Roman road system, a belief in linear, gentle organization that transcended the chaotic turns of the natural world. The early work was slow, accompanied only by the sound of simple tools meeting soft stone and earth and the deep rhythmic exhalation of manual labor. Each foundation stone laid was a silent promise. It was the creation of an eternal spine for a growing state, a gentle framework upon which everything else could peacefully rest. The earliest paths had served the family. This road was intended to serve the collective quietly and reliably through every season that would follow. It was the first breath of a vast, quiet network that would eventually cover the known world, always providing a steady surface for gentle footsteps. The Via Appia, often called the Queen of Roads, was born not with a shout, but with a deep, resolute quietness. It was the first time that Rome truly decided to imprint its intention onto the landscape, not merely to occupy it, but to gently guide the flow of movement. In the year 312 BCE, the soft light of evening must have fallen upon the initial survey teams. Imagine them moving through the fields, their tools simple and true, guided by the stillness of the compass and the long shadow of the sun. The great defining characteristic of this road, its straightness, was not an act of arrogance, but an expression of profound, simple efficiency. A straight line is the most restful path between 2 points. It is the shortest route conserving the energy and the breath of every traveler who would follow. The quiet intention behind this road was to connect Rome, the central hearth, to Capua, a gentle port of commerce to the south. This connection was vital. But the story of the Via Appia is less about the necessity of the journey and more about the dedication to the foundation. Building this road was a slow, deliberate act, a kind of deep geological meditation. It demanded patience and a willingness to work with the natural world, even as it sought to overcome its softness. The ground had to be carefully prepared. Where the earth was yielding, deep ditches were dug, allowing the soft mud to be removed and replaced with firmer foundational material. This was the quiet secret of Roman engineering, and the preparation mattered more than the final appearance. Think of this process as creating a deep, stable breath for the earth itself. Below the surface, unseen by the future traveler, lay layers of carefully placed materials. First, large foundation stones, the statumen, were settled often deep enough to avoid frost or shift. These were placed with quiet care, interlocking like the steady bones of a great sleeper. Above this, gravel and rough stones mixed with mortar, the rudis created a thick, impenetrable layer. This was the steady heart of the road, giving it its strength and its remarkable drainage. It ensured that no matter how hard the gentle rain fell, the water would not pool or soften the road's core, but would gently drain away into the surrounding ditches. Above this lay another layer of finer gravel and packed sand, the nucleus. This was the final cushion, the smoothing layer prepared for the soft, steady surface stones. The entire structure was a deliberate, layered act of peace designed to endure. Imagine the soundscape of this construction: no harsh machinery, only the rhythmic clank of hammers against chisels, the soft scrape of shovels, and the quiet commands of the foreman. It was a sound of slow, warm progress, a deep, steady rhythm that settled into the landscape like a lullaby. The final layer, the paving stones, or summum dorsum, were large, flat blocks of local stone. These were carefully fitted together, their upper surfaces often convex, gently rounded, to encourage the water to flow softly to the sides. When the road was finished, it was not jarring or sharp. It was a smooth, steady, dark line cutting through the landscape. When the Via Appia was finally complete, the people who first walked upon it must have felt a profound sense of ease. No longer did they fight the mud. No longer did they stumble on uneven ground. Their footsteps found a steady, predictable rhythm. The road invited them to move with quiet grace, to trust the ground beneath them, and to look toward their destination without the distraction of struggle. The road was immediately recognized as more than just a connection point. It was a symbol of quiet organization, a promise that the order of Rome extended not just to the city walls, but deep into the very earth they walked upon. It showed the world that Rome built things to last, not with aggression, but with deep, methodical patience. This first road was the humble birth of an empire's defining characteristic, eternal logistics, built upon quiet intention. As the Via Appia stretched its steady dark line across the landscape, it introduced a new philosophy to the world, the quiet wisdom of the straight line. Before this, paths were yielding bending to the shape of every hillock and the wet suggestion of every stream. The straight Roman road was a declaration of steady, unyielding vision. Imagine standing on a cool morning at one end of a newly paved segment. The stone, still damp from the night's soft mist, catches the low light of the rising sun. The road flows before you perfectly straight until it disappears into the gentle fog on the distant horizon. It is a line of profound, restful simplicity. This straightness was not simply for aesthetics. It was a deep commitment to the most direct, most effortless movement possible. A straight path allows the traveler to gaze far ahead to see their destination, or at least the clear path toward it, without the distraction of unexpected curves. It instills a sense of quiet certainty and removes the anxiety of the unknown turn. The Roman builders embraced the concept of steadiness. They did not fear obstacles. They simply planned to go through or over them with calm organization. If a soft marsh lay in the way, they built causeways, long raised platforms of earth and stone, allowing the traveler to pass over the damp ground as if floating on a slow river of stone. If a gentle hill blocked the path, they preferred to cut a smooth, sloping passage through it, maintaining the line rather than introducing a sharp curve that would strain the breath of the oxen. This philosophy was a quiet metaphor for the Roman temperament itself, organized, systematic, and focused on the long duration. The road was meant to endure centuries of gentle footsteps, slow carts, and the changing cycles of sun and rain. Therefore, the planning had to be equally patient and long-sighted. The men responsible for this gentle alignment were the surveyors, or agrimensors. Their most important tool was the groma, a simple, elegant instrument. Picture a staff with crosspieces weighted by plumb lines, allowing them to establish perfectly straight lines and right angles. The groma was not noisy or dramatic. It was a tool of quiet precision, relying on gravity and the clear line of sight. The surveyors would work with quiet diligence, laying out the route in short, straight segments called decumanus and cardo, mirroring the orderly layout they applied to newly founded cities. They walked the route, slowly marking distances with quiet precision, consulting the stillness of the landscape. Their work ensured that every mile of road was built upon a foundation of mathematical peace. The material of the road further expressed this philosophy of endurance. The stone surface, often basalt or local limestone, was hard and durable. When a traveler rested their hand upon the stone, they felt not the roughness of nature, but the smooth, cool certainty of human intention. It was a surface that whispered, "You are safe here. This path will not betray you." Even the naming conventions reflected this quiet order. The roads were named after the official who sponsored their building, the Via Appia, the Via Flaminia, anchoring them forever to the individual act of foresight. This gave each road a personality, a subtle history that deepened its sense of place. As time passed, the straight Roman roads became the quiet arteries of the Republic, and later the Empire. They transported not just soldiers and goods, but the gentle concepts of law culture and standardized time. Every traveler who moved along that predictable surface carried a piece of Rome's peaceful organization, with them sharing it silently at every market and every quiet inn. The philosophy of the straight line was therefore the philosophy of deep trust. Trust in the builder's care, trust in the road's strength, and trust in the predictable pace of the journey. It was a commitment to steadiness that settled into the ancient landscape like a long, quiet sigh, inviting all to follow its calm guidance. We drift now toward the final quiet observation of the road's beginnings, focusing on the beautiful, slow transformation from a soft, yielding dirt track to a foundation designed for durability, an architecture built upon patience. The contrast between the old trackways and the new Roman roads was the difference between a shallow breath and a deep, sustaining one. The ancient paths were vulnerable to every passing storm, blurring and dissolving back into the earth, demanding constant repetitive effort. The Roman road, by contrast, was a quiet solution to this endless cycle of repair. It was built with the understanding that true strength lies not on the surface, but in the unseen depths. Imagine the builders looking down into the freshly dug trench, the roadbed. This space was not simply cleared. It was organized, much like a mind preparing for a long, restful sleep. This preparation was the anatomy of durability. The total thickness of a major road could often reach 3 to 4 feet, a deliberate stack of comfort and strength. It was designed to distribute the slow, gentle weight of a loaded ox cart or a group of quiet travelers across the widest possible area, ensuring the earth beneath was never unduly stressed. The lowest layer, the statumen, was the most critical. These were large, unworked stones, sometimes the size of a low boulder, fitted together to create a rock-solid, slightly uneven platform. Think of this layer as the slow, deep heartbeat of the road, giving it its anchor. This layer's purpose was to lift the entire structure above the surrounding water table, guaranteeing that the vital upper layers would remain dry and stable. This was Rome's quiet mastery of drainage. Above the statumen lay the rudus. This was the layer of crushed stone gravel, and sometimes broken pottery, all mixed with a soft, durable mortar, a kind of early concrete. When tamped down with heavy rhythmic precision, the rudus hardened into a dense, semi-rigid slab. This layer was the primary structural element, the steady spine of the path. Its composition ensured it was not only strong, but porous enough to prevent any remaining water from rising. Then came the nucleus, a layer of sand, or finer gravel, also carefully compacted. This served as the soothing cushion, the intermediary layer, that smoothed out any remaining irregularities from the rougher rudus below. It was the gentle preparation for the final surface, ensuring a perfect, even resting place for the heavy paving stones. The final layer of the summum dorsum was the surface. We remember the smooth, dark polygonal stones. They were cut with quiet precision, fitted edge to edge so tightly that mortar was often unnecessary. They were polished smooth by the soft friction of centuries of passing footsteps and the slow glide of wagon wheels. This was the visible elegance, the promise of ease. The beauty of this layered construction was its deep, quiet logic. Each layer had a specific restful task. One provided drainage, one provided stability, one provided smooth transition, and the last provided a durable surface. It was a holistic system where failure in one layer was supported by the strength of the others. This careful layered process was the opposite of haste. It required months, sometimes years, of methodical, rhythmic labor. The Roman road, therefore, was not merely transportation. It was a physical manifestation of long-term thinking, a monument to the virtue of doing things slowly and doing them once. As the sun sets softly on this first layer of our story, imagine the very earth accepting this new quiet spine. The ground that was once soft and easily broken now holds a steady, organized line of stone stretching calmly toward the distance. This durability would define the entire empire, turning chaos into calm and distance into connection, all through the gentle, organized language of stone and sand. We now enter a new layer of quiet time, moving from the initial vision of the Via Appia to the broader formation of the entire road system across the gentle hills and valleys of Italia. This was not a sudden loud explosion of building, but a slow, unhurried expansion spreading across the land like a calm, predictable tide. Once the stability and effectiveness of the first great road were understood, the concept became integrated into the very rhythm of the Republic's growth. Every new connection, every peaceful outreach required a corresponding line of stone. The roads became the quiet, physical articulation of Roman influence, softly connecting allies, linking new colonies, and ensuring a steady flow of communication back to the capital hearth. Imagine the map of Italy during this period, not as a political boundary, but as a space where lines of communication are gradually gently being drawn. Each new road was named and planned with the same meticulous care as the first. We find the Via Flaminia reaching north toward the Adriatic Sea and the Via Aurelia tracing the gentle coastline to the west. These roads were not built simultaneously. Their construction was staggered over centuries, a testament to the steady, patient pace of their logistic dreams. The process of building was inherently slow, tied to the agricultural cycles and the availability of labor, which moved with the seasons. Large teams of builders, engineers, and workers moved with quiet efficiency, establishing temporary camps that smelled of damp wood, cooking fires, and low embers. They lived in rhythm with the sun, starting their work at dawn's soft light and resting when the evening stillness descended. This slow spread across Italia was less about asserting dominance and more about ensuring reliability. The roads created a sense of unified calm. A farmer in the north could know that the road beneath his feet was built to the same reliable standard as the road leading into Rome. This standardization removed uncertainty from travel, replacing it with a quiet confidence. The expansion followed a logical, gentle sequence. First, the primary routes were established, the great main lines that radiated outward from Rome like the spokes of a slow-turning wheel. Once these main lines were secure, smaller secondary roads, the viae vicinales, were gently woven in, connecting the main lines to the quiet farming villages and distant villas. These smaller paths often were not paved with a heavy polygonal stone, but were compacted gravel or smooth earth, still reliable, but softer to the foot. This slow, thoughtful network created an intricate, soft weave of movement across the peninsula. It meant that a messenger carrying quiet news, a merchant transporting olives or wine, or a family moving to a new settlement could all rely on the path being steady and safe, regardless of the distance traveled. The roads, therefore, served as quiet reminders of order. They were the gentle threads that held the diverse peoples of Italy together. They encouraged movement, but movement at a peaceful, measured pace. A journey that might have been fraught with difficulty on soft tracks became a smooth, predictable glide on the engineered stone. As this network grew, it shaped the landscape in a fundamentally serene way. Towns began to blossom along the roads, finding comfort and connection in the steady traffic. Bridges of quiet, enduring stone arched gracefully over rivers, their presence speaking of engineering harmony rather than struggle. The roads ensured that no part of the peninsula felt truly isolated. Every community was tethered by a line of cool, reliable stone back to the heart of the Republic. This was the quiet genius of the Roman road, connecting the diverse voices of the land through a unified, patient architecture. The slow, steady growth of the road system during the early Republic was a testament to the quiet power of logistics. These roads were not merely convenient paths. They were the essential circulatory system that allowed the small central hearth of Rome to sustain its life and growth. This was an era where connecting the heart, the capital, to its extremities was the highest priority for achieving a deep, enduring peace. Imagine the city of Rome itself, the hub of this growing wheel. From its gates, the roads fanned out, each carrying vital supplies, quiet information, and the measured cadence of authority. The most critical function of these early roads was ensuring the steady flow of grain. Rome, a rapidly expanding city, could not feed itself, relying instead on the fertile plains of the surrounding countryside and increasingly on distant ports. The Roman road system became the channel for this vital sustenance. Large, slow-moving carts, often covered with linen to protect their cargo from the gentle dust, rolled along the smooth, cool stones, carrying wheat barley and the lifeblood of the city. The reliability of the road meant that these deliveries could be planned with quiet precision, removing the stress of famine or unexpected delays. It was the road that ensured a full table and a peaceful night's sleep for the citizens. Beyond grain, the roads carried the quiet force of Roman authority. Officials moving at a slightly quicker pace on horseback or in light carriages used the roads to maintain communication and organization. The road network ensured that a decree issued in Rome could reach a distant governor or newly settled colony with predictable swiftness. This steady, reliable communication was the true power of the early republic, not the sharpness of a sword, but the speed of a message. To facilitate this, the foundations of the state-run messenger service, the cursus publicus, were quietly laid during this time. While it would fully bloom later, the need for structured rest stops and reliable distances began here. Every 5 or 6 miles, the travelers would find milestones, the miliaria, large stone columns placed beside the road. These were not dramatic monuments, but quiet markers of progress, letting the traveler know precisely how far they had traveled and how much gentle distance remained until the next quiet hearth or town. The miliaria anchored the journey in reality, turning an amorphous stretch of distance into a sequence of manageable, predictable steps. The silence of the open road was broken only by the soft, rhythmic clip-clop of hooves and the gentle grinding of wheel against stone, a sound that spoke of continuous, organized progress. Furthermore, the roads served a crucial military logistics role, though this was often softened and made distant. The movement of legions was rarely hurried or panicked. It was a vast, slow movement of organized bodies, bringing stability and reassurance to the lands they passed through. The wide, straight roads allowed these formations to move efficiently without becoming entangled or exhausted by rough terrain. This gentle efficiency meant that the resources of the state were always in a state of quiet potential readiness. The quiet logistics of the early republic transformed travel from a difficult adventure into a predictable routine. The road became a guarantor of peace, ensuring that resources were shared. News traveled reliably, and the central beating heart of Rome was connected to its furthest reaches by a network of cool, organized stone. This was the steady, unseen architecture of longevity, designed not just for a season, but for the quiet, enduring future. To achieve the quiet, unwavering straightness of the Roman road, the builders relied on a few simple, yet profoundly effective tools wielded by the patient hands of the surveyors, the agrimensors. Their work was not brute force, but gentle, persistent alignment, ensuring that the intention of the straight line translated perfectly onto the uneven canvas of the earth. The most iconic of these tools was the groma. Imagine a simple wooden staff, perhaps chest-high, anchored in the soft earth. At its top, a horizontal crosspiece supported 4 weighted plumb lines, hanging down like silent, steady pendulum bobs. The groma was the embodiment of quiet accuracy. When the 4 plumb lines hung perfectly still, the surveyor knew the crosspieces were aligned in 2 perfectly perpendicular directions. To establish the long, straight path, the surveyor would stand on a high, clear vantage point, setting up the groma. He would gaze through the crosspieces, sighting the line toward the distant horizon or a predetermined marker. This initial sighting was the genesis of the road. It required a deep, steady breath and a quiet eye relying on the certainty of gravity and the clear path of light. Once the line was established, assistants would be sent far down the path, carrying long colored rods. The surveyor would patiently guide them with quiet hand signals, moving them until they were perfectly centered in the line of sight, defined by the groma. As the assistants placed stakes at intervals, the straight path was quietly etched onto the earth, ready for the digging crews. The agrimensors also carried detailed surveying cords carefully knotted at specific standardized distances. These were used to measure the road's width and the precise placement of the miliaria, the milestones which acted as the steady markers of predictability. Every step of the process was measured, not rushed. It was a rhythmic, mathematical undertaking that brought a sense of organized peace to the chaotic sprawl of nature. Even the way they dealt with hills was an exercise in gentle alignment. Rather than imposing a uniform gradient, the surveyors would use a water level, a simple trough filled with liquid to determine the natural level lines of the land. They would then design a steady, manageable slope, ensuring the path was not too steep for the oxen to climb without strain. The road was always designed to accommodate the gentle pace of the slowest, heaviest traveler. The work of the surveyor continued even after the path was staked out. They supervised the excavation of the roadbed, ensuring that the ditches on either side the fossae were dug deep enough for proper drainage. These ditches were essential. They quietly carried away the rainwater, preventing it from softening the road's deep foundation. The fossae were the unseen guardians of the road's longevity. This methodical use of the groma and the steady cords ensured that the Roman road was not built haphazardly. It was a product of foresight and quiet precision. The resulting stability was not achieved through chance, but through the patient, gentle application of geometry. As we drift away from the tools of the agrimensores, imagine the groma standing alone in the field under the pale moonlight. It is a symbol of calm focus, its plumb lines hanging perfectly still, defining the gentle alignment that would endure for 1,000 years. The Roman road, born of this quiet attention to detail, was a promise of constancy, a long, smooth breath taken across the landscape. The philosophy of the straight line sometimes met the unyielding reality of the landscape. A deep, flowing river, or a large, unyielding mountain range. It was here that Roman ingenuity expressed its most gentle harmony with nature, transforming obstacles not through conflict, but through soft, enduring architecture. In the steady curve of the bridge, in the quiet darkness of the tunnel, the Roman arch bridge was a design born of patient observation. Water, the softest of elements, can also be the most disruptive. The bridges were designed to allow the river to flow beneath them, unimpeded, a quiet acknowledgement of the river's eternal path. Imagine standing on the bank of a swift-moving river, where a Roman road reaches its edge. The stone bridge rises gracefully, its rounded arches reflecting perfectly in the calm water. The arch itself is a masterpiece of quiet strength. It distributes the slow, gentle weight of the traffic outward and downward, ensuring that no single point bears too much stress. The stones of the arch, the voussoirs, are cut with precision, each piece leaning against its neighbor, creating a continuous, self-supporting embrace. The central stone, the keystone, is the quiet heart of the structure, holding the entire assembly in a state of perfect balanced peace. The construction of these bridges was slow, methodical, and often involved diverting the river's flow with temporary earthen dams, allowing the foundations to be laid deep and dry within the riverbed. These foundations, built of heavy, immovable stones, ensured that the bridge's feet were anchored against the soft erosion of time and tide. Once completed, the bridge allowed the road to glide seamlessly across the water, a moment of peaceful transition from one bank to the next. Equally quiet and impressive were the tunnels. When a mountain ridge was deemed too steep or too long to gracefully curve around, the surveyors chose the patient, arduous path of boring straight through the stone. These tunnels were not dug with violent force, but with a steady, rhythmic persistence of hand tools. The workers would strike the rock face sometimes for years, removing the stone grain by grain, following the precise, straight line plotted by the agrimensores above. Within the cool, dark silence of the tunnel, the air smelled of damp earth and distant rock. The only sounds were the soft, echoing chime of the chisel and the slow, warm breath of the workers. Torches would cast long, dancing shadows, emphasizing the deep sense of stillness within the stone. These tunnels and bridges were more than just engineering feats. They were soft echoes of Rome's enduring character. They allowed the continuity of the path to be maintained, ensuring that the traveler's rhythm was not broken by a sharp climb or a winding detour. They transformed the rugged, chaotic landscape into a space of predictability and ease. The bridge said, "You may cross this great water with peace." The tunnel whispered, "The darkness is short, and the straight path endures." As the road system expanded, these structures dotted the landscape of Italia, turning the Republic into a truly connected whole. They were monuments not to power, but to the patient mastery of organization, softening the Earth's natural resistance, and ensuring that the gentle flow of communication and commerce was never interrupted. This harmony with the landscape cemented the roads as an eternal quiet feature of the Italian night. We now drift into the third layer of our journey, the era of early journeys, when the vast network of roads truly began to facilitate the movement of an expanding empire. The quiet flow of communication was formalized through the cursus publicus, the imperial post system. This organization was the unseen steady pulse of the entire empire, relying absolutely on the predictable calm of the stone roads. The cursus publicus was not a frantic, hurried operation. It was characterized by a gentle pace and profound organization. It served to carry official messages, quiet reports, and the essential paperwork of governance across thousands of miles. The primary user of this system was the tabularius, the imperial messenger. Imagine the tabularius at the start of their long, quiet journey. They carried documents sealed with the emperor's personal stamp and a passport or diploma, granting them the right to use the state-run facilities along the road. They traveled often on a sturdy, reliable horse, or sometimes in a light, fast carriage called a rida, but always moving with measured, non-strenuous efficiency. The road was their predictable companion. The straight alignment and smooth stone surface allowed them to cover long distances with remarkable speed, for the time not through frantic effort, but through sustained consistency. The messenger's rhythm was steady: ride, rest, exchange horses, and ride again. The road itself removed the element of unpredictable hardship, replacing it with the certainty of a fixed schedule. This system relied on two essential components, placed at measured intervals along every major Roman road: the mutationes and the mansiones. The mutationes were the first point of service. These were the quiet relay stations placed approximately every 10 to 15 Roman miles, about 914 modern miles. They existed solely for the changing of horses and the making of minor quiet repairs to carts. When a tabularius arrived, their horse, tired but not exhausted, would be swapped for a fresh, eager animal, allowing the journey to continue immediately without a lengthy stop. The mutatio was a place of brief, quiet transition, a small pocket of activity on the long, serene road. The mansiones were the larger, more substantial rest stops, positioned about every 20-30 Roman miles. These were the gentle inns where the messenger could find a quiet hearth, a warm meal, and a safe place for a full night's sleep. They were essential to the rhythm of the journey, ensuring the messenger and the horses were fully rested and ready for the next day's steady progress. We will explore the quiet comfort of the mansions in more detail later. The cursus publicus itself was a profound act of logistical peace. It meant that the vastness of the empire could be managed as a cohesive unit. A message from the farthest province could reach the center in weeks, not months, which in the ancient world was the very definition of speed and quiet certainty. The road, therefore, was not merely a physical structure, but an instrument of time. It compressed the days required for travel, removing the anxiety of delay. The quiet mission of the imperial messenger, riding steadily through the light and the gentle dark, was to embody this certainty, carrying the stability of the central government out to the farthest, mistiest reaches of the empire. The road made this gentle pace and vast connection possible. The Roman road, the Via, was not just a marvel of engineering. It was a living space, a long, extended neighborhood where the rhythm of life found a slow, steady cadence. as we drift along the surface of these ancient stones. Listen for the characteristic sounds of the time, the soft sound of sandals and carts, the quiet symphony of predictable movement. The majority of travelers moved at the gentle human pace of walking. Roman citizens, soldiers, merchants, and pilgrims all moved in the same steady tempo. Their footwear, often sturdy leather sandals, caligae for the soldiers, calce for others, made a characteristic soft, rhythmic scrape and clip on the hard stone surface. This sound was a constant low accompaniment to the daytime stillness, a soft, reassuring indication that the world was moving forward slowly and methodically. Imagine a long line of travelers moving at dawn, the air cool, and the mist still clinging to the ditches. The road is wide enough to accommodate two-way traffic, with ease preventing the stress of narrow passage. On the right, a string of slow-moving carts carries its load. These carts, heavy with wine amphorae or bundles of wool, moved at the unhurried speed of the oxen or mules pulling them. The wheels, often iron-rimmed, produced a gentle rhythmic grinding against the smooth stone, a sound that quickly faded into the background, becoming a calming aspect of the journey. These carts symbolized the economic stability that the roads guaranteed. They moved without fear of bogging down or breaking an axle on treacherous terrain. The knowledge that the goods, the quiet wealth of the empire, would arrive predictably and safely, created an atmosphere of economic peace. For those on foot, the wide organized road offered small comforts. The edges of the via were often marked by slightly raised curbstones, providing a smooth border. Where the road crossed open country, there might be a lower earth path running parallel to the main stone pavement, allowing travelers and animals a softer surface to walk on, particularly in dry weather. This was an example of gentle accommodation, recognizing the need for variety within the structure. Along the way, the travelers would encounter the milestones, the miliaria, standing silently in their steady positions. These markers served as quiet points of focus, a steady reminder of distance covered and distance remaining. The simple act of passing one offered a small, quiet sense of accomplishment, breaking the monotony of the long, straight line. The landscape along the roads was not barren. It was often lined by the tombs and monuments of the departed, especially near the approaches to cities. These quiet structures were not frightening. They were respectful, offering a soft, visual reminder of the connection between the living and the past. As travelers passed them, they offered a moment of quiet contemplation on the enduring nature of life and journey. At midday, the travelers would stop at the side of the road, perhaps seeking the low shade of a distant olive tree or a simple rock outcropping. The sounds would soften the unharnessing of an animal, the soft murmuring of voices, the quiet chewing of bread. Then, as the sun began its gentle descent, the journey would resume the sound of sandals and carts, once again taking up their rhythmic, hypnotic pace. The life along the Via was one of shared gentle effort. The road was the great equalizer, providing a steady surface for all, from the simplest farmer to the highest official, all moving along the same stone path, united by the quiet promise of the ancient pavement. As the sun would gently sink toward the horizon, casting long, soft shadows across the stone pavement, the travelers' thoughts would turn toward the Mancio. These official rest stops were the pockets of quiet refuge along the great road's essential havens that transformed the long journey from an ordeal into a sequence of predictable, restful pauses. The mansions were more than just simple inns. They were large, organized complexes designed to accommodate the steady flow of official and commercial traffic. They were situated at comfortable, regular intervals, a day's steady journey apart, ensuring that no traveler on the main roads was forced to spend the night exposed to the elements or the unpredictable darkness. Imagine approaching a Mancio as the air grows cool with the evening stillness. You can hear the distant low sound of animals being settled and the faint murmur of voices. The complex would typically be enclosed by a low, comforting wall, offering a sense of quiet security and retreat from the endless road. Inside, the layout was focused on rest and function. There would be spacious courtyards, where carts could be parked and unharnessed. Stables were the first priority, ensuring the animals were fed, watered, and settled for the night, their presence adding a warm, gentle presence to the quiet of the establishment. The health of the beasts was paramount, as they were the silent engine of the empire's logistics. The lodging quarters themselves varied, but all offered the necessary comforts for a deep, restorative sleep. Travelers would find simple, clean rooms, often arranged around a central open space, ensuring good ventilation and a sense of shared, peaceful community. The smells inside were warm, the scent of wood smoke from the kitchen hearth, the earthy aroma of simple food being prepared, and the gentle musk of fresh hay. The mansio provided a quiet hearth where the road's isolation could be temporarily lifted. Travelers from different parts of the empire, a merchant from Gaul, a soldier heading to Syria, a government official returning to Rome would share the evening meal. The conversation kept low and steady would revolve around the conditions of the roads ahead, the prices of goods, and quiet low-drama news from distant places. These stops facilitated a quiet exchange of information, making the roads not just paths of travel, but networks of gentle human connection. For those traveling on the cursus publicus, the mansio was the official place for their full rest. The diploma they carried ensured they received the best care their needs prioritized to guarantee their rapid and rested resumption of the journey the next morning. These inns were thus part of the empire's infrastructure, a deliberate investment in the calm continuity of governance. The experience of the mansio was about dissolving the day's fatigue and preparing for the next. The cool, quiet stone of the building, the familiar rhythm of the evening routines, and the secure presence of other travelers all contributed to an atmosphere of profound safety. The traveler could trust that they would be cared for, their horses rested, and their belongings secure. As the moon drifted high, casting a silver light over the courtyard, the sounds would soften to only the low breathing of the sleeping animals and the occasional crackle of low embers. The mansio was a temporary pause in the eternal flow of the road, a gentle invitation to let the day's movement settle and to welcome the deep, restorative quiet of the night. The Roman roads, having established a framework for governance and communication, naturally became the soft channels for commerce. This was the movement of everyday life, the flow of goods that brought comfort, flavor, and gentle sustenance to distant homes. The transport of olives, grain, wine, and pottery moved along the Via like a slow, predictable tide. In this golden age of movement, the roads facilitated a peaceful economic unity across the empire. Merchants understood that the predictability of the road directly translated into financial stability. A predictable journey meant predictable costs and predictable delivery times, removing the sharp anxiety from trade. Imagine the gentle sound of the wagon trains heading out from a quiet port, having just offloaded goods from the sea lanes. The carts are laden with heavy amphorae, tall clay vessels shaped to hold wine, and most importantly, olive oil. Olive oil was more than just a foodstuff. It was a source of light for the lantern glow, a cleanser for the bath, and a vital part of the Roman diet. Its journey, therefore, was a journey of comfort and necessity. The carts moved at the speed of the draft animals, a slow, sustained effort that never broke into a stressful pace. The road surface was wide enough to allow these trains to pass one another smoothly, a silent acknowledgement of the importance of mutual gentle progress. The stability of the pavement meant fewer breakages of the delicate clay amphorae, ensuring the safe arrival of the valuable liquid gold. This steady flow of commerce also encouraged the growth of secondary industries along the roadside. Roadside markets and small artisanal shops would appear near towns and mansions, offering local goods, minor repairs, and simple, warm food. These were small, quiet hubs where travelers and locals could interact, sharing news and exchanging small comforts. The Roman roads also became the pathways for the transport of building materials. Long, heavy logs for construction or large blocks of specialized marble from distant quarries were hauled slowly and carefully. This movement was vital for maintaining the aesthetic peace and the structural durability of cities across the provinces. The sheer effort of moving such heavy materials was made manageable only by the smooth, unwavering surface of the roads. Even the currency of the empire traveled along these paths. New coins minted in the capital or regional centers were transported in heavy guarded wagons. This dispersal of standardized coinage helped ensure a unified, reliable economy, where trade could be conducted with quiet certainty regardless of the distance between the two parties. The road system worked in gentle harmony with the sea lanes, creating a complete logistical picture. The sea offered speed over vast distances. The road offered reliability and final delivery. Goods arriving at a port like Ostia near Rome were quickly and quietly transferred onto the land routes, beginning their steady inland journey along the Great Via. The quiet success of this commerce meant that Roman citizens and allied populations could access a wide variety of goods, raising the general level of comfort and reducing the stresses associated with scarcity. The road was a testament to the fact that organized logistics pursued with patience and care leads directly to peace and prosperity. As we conclude this layer, imagine the last cart of the day, passing your quiet position on the road. The soft sound of its wheels fades into the gentle distance, carrying the scent of olives and the promise of tomorrow's commerce. It is a slow, reassuring end to the day's quiet movement. We now quietly transition into the fourth layer of our story, the turning points. These were not moments of sharp conflict, but gentle, profound shifts, like seasons changing as the road system expanded far beyond the Mediterranean warmth, extending its soft, organized fingers into the furthest, mistiest reaches of the empire. One of the most distant and evocative of these expansions was the construction of roads in Britannia. When the legions made their slow, deliberate move into the island of Britannia, they brought with them the essential Roman promise, the road. Here, the challenge was not merely technical, but environmental. The roads had to meet the persistent chill, the damp earth, and the low, heavy northern fog. The predictable engineering of the south had to be gently adapted to the new, softer resistance of the northern landscape. Imagine the work crews operating in this cooler climate. The principles remain the same, the deep layers of statumen and rudus, but the materials changed. Where volcanic rock was common in Italy, here, the builders relied on local slate grit and plentiful gravel. The crucial importance of drainage, already central to Roman road building, became even more vital in Britannia's wet climate. The roads were often built higher, raised above the surrounding marshy fields on a strong embankment called the agger. This agger was the gentle, elevated spine of the road, ensuring that water quickly flowed down and away, leaving the main path dry and reliable. Walking on an agger road in the misty twilight would feel like moving along a long, slightly raised platform, elevated just enough to keep your feet dry and your pace steady. The roads in Britannia, such as the famous Fosse Way, were often built with an even more direct, unwavering straightness than those in the south. This was partly due to the land being less densely settled, allowing the surveyors still using their precise groma to lay down incredibly long, straight segments across the rolling hills and plains. These lines of stone cut through the fog like a quiet, enduring thought, connecting new towns like Lincoln, Cirencester, and York to the military centers and ports. The presence of the roads brought a profound, soft shift to the land. Before, the movement of people and resources was determined by twisting seasonal tracks. Now the roads offered a path of quiet certainty. They allowed local produce to be transported efficiently, creating a predictable exchange of goods that settled the area and integrated it into the wider, calmer logistics of the empire. Yet the roads here felt different. They were often solitary, stretching out toward the edge of the known world, ending eventually at the quiet, imposing line of a frontier wall. They carried the feeling of distant purpose, echoing the ambition of the empire to organize even the coldest, most remote corners of its reach. The soundscape of a British Roman road was often hushed, dominated by the low whistle of the soft wind across the moors, the occasional cry of a gull, and the steady distant rhythm of military patrols moving quietly between forts. The road itself was a continuous, cool reminder of Roman presence, a ribbon of smooth stone providing a path of comfort and predictability through the otherwise wild, misty landscape. This gentle expansion into Britannia marked a turning point for the entire system. It proved the road's quiet adaptability, showing that the principles of deep foundation, steady alignment, and excellent drainage could be applied successfully to virtually any terrain or climate, sustaining the movement of the empire for centuries to come. As the Roman road system reached further into new provinces like Gaul, modern France, and Hispania, Spain, its expansion took on a profound dimension of quiet diplomacy. The road was often the first, most tangible sign of Roman presence, and its construction served as a soft, continuous effort to establish connection over conflict. For newly incorporated territories, the arrival of the Roman engineers and their straight, steady roads signaled a commitment to stability and logistics. The act of building was a public demonstration that Rome was not merely interested in extracting resources, but in providing infrastructure that would benefit the local populations. The road offered a shared, predictable path for everyone, fostering a sense of joint purpose. Imagine a newly surveyed road being laid through a remote Gallic village. Before the road, the village was relatively isolated, relying on slow local exchange. Now, with the sound of the workers' rhythmic hammers and chisels, a path is opened to the wider world. Local farmers could now access larger, more distant markets, turning their surplus into reliable income. This economic ease was a powerful silent form of persuasion. The process of construction often involved the local population, while the supervising engineers and surveyors were Roman. And the majority of the labor digging the fosse, crushing the stone, and laying the pavement was often drawn from the local community, sometimes voluntarily, sometimes as required service. This shared effort in building something durable and beneficial fostered a sense of ownership and integration. They were not simply observers. They were participants in the creation of a lasting amenity. The Roman approach was subtle. They often adapted existing local tracks, enhancing them with their signature foundational strength and straightness. This acknowledged the wisdom of the local terrain while improving the path's durability. The road, therefore, was a gentle compromise, a Roman idea built upon a local understanding, creating a synthesis of quiet efficiency. The road also brought with it the gentle organizing structure of Roman law and administration. Along the routes, small settlements grew, protected by the road's presence and linked to Roman centers of governance. The easy movement of magistrates and officials meant that disputes could be settled, trade rules enforced, and the generalized peace maintained with predictable consistency. The road became the physical manifestation of Pax Romana, the Roman peace. In the misty mountains of Spain or the dense forests of Germania, the roads were a clear sign of long-term commitment. They demonstrated that Rome intended to stay and that the local population would benefit from the predictability and security of the empire's logistical network. The road was a promise. You are now connected, and connection means stability. The quiet diplomacy of road building was the understanding that a good, reliable road often achieved more lasting integration than 1,000 armed declarations. It allowed for the soft, continuous flow of culture, language, and shared economic interest, gradually weaving disparate communities into the single vast fabric of the Roman world. As we softly drift, reflect on how a simple line of stone, patiently laid, could serve as such a powerful, non-confrontational agent of change, unifying vast territories, not through stress, but through the gentle, organized rhythm of movement. The enduring life of the Roman road system was not due to an initial singular act of perfection, but to the deep, steady commitment to maintenance. Over centuries, even the hardest stone yields to the patient work of nature. The soft expansion of ice in a crack, the slow settlement of the earth beneath the gentle erosion of water flow. This reality necessitated a continuous quiet process of constant renewal, viewing road upkeep as the empire's steady, necessary breath. Imagine the road not as a finished monument, but as a living entity that required ongoing care. The philosophy of maintenance was built into the system from the beginning. It was understood that a road left unattended would quickly revert to the soft, unpredictable trackway it replaced. The primary task of maintenance was the quiet repair of the surface. Over time, the smooth polygonal paving stones might shift, crack, or sink slightly, creating small depressions that could collect water. These small shifts, if ignored, would turn the predictable path into an uneven, jarring one. Teams of local workers, often organized under the supervision of local officials, were tasked with identifying and correcting these subtle flaws. The repair work itself was a rhythmic, gentle process. Stones would be carefully lifted, the underlying nucleus and rudest layers would be recompacted or replaced, and the stone would be reset firmly and smoothly. The sound of this work was one of patient rebuilding. On the soft click of stone against stone, the rhythmic thud of the heavy rammer compacting the layers beneath. This was not dramatic construction, but quiet restoration. Equally important was the constant attention to drainage. The ditches, the fossae on either side of the road, were the road's unseen guardians. They required regular cleaning, ensuring that leaves, silt, and soft debris did not block the gentle flow of rainwater away from the foundation. Workers would move along the road with shovels and tools, quietly clearing these channels, ensuring the road's deep layers remained dry and stable. This task was one of profound importance. A dry foundation was the silent secret to the road's longevity. Furthermore, the milestones miliaria needed steady attention. Sometimes knocked over by a large cart or softened by weather, they were periodically cleaned, re-erected, or replaced. These markers of distance and order were vital for the continued predictability of travel, and their upkeep was a quiet symbol of the empire's commitment to reliable information. The resources for this steady maintenance were often delegated to the local municipalities and nearby villas, who benefited directly from the road's presence. This decentralized approach meant that the care of the road was woven into the fabric of local community responsibility, ensuring that someone was always watching and caring for the adjacent segment. The road system therefore passed through endless cycles of soft decay and renewal. It was a continuous low-level effort that avoided the need for large, stressful reconstruction projects. This enduring rhythm, the slow breaking down and the patient rebuilding, is the quiet lesson of the Roman road's true durability is found in continuous, gentle attention. As we settle into the memory of this steady care, imagine the warm, tired hands of the maintenance crews smoothing the last stone into place, just as the low embers of the evening begin to glow, securing the path for the quiet travelers of the next day. As the Roman road spread and matured, the need to conceptually understand and organize this vast network of quiet connections gave rise to the first systematic maps of the ancient world. These maps were not like the ones we know today. They were not precise scaled representations of the earth, but practical linear guides tracing the paths of distant dreams and necessary journeys. The most famous of these surviving documents is the Tabula Peutingeriana. Imagine unrolling a scroll not of parchment, but of the soft, aged memory of the empire's roads. This long, narrow document, stretching over 20 feet in length, shows the entire Roman road network from Britannia in the west to India in the east, all squeezed onto one continuous, gentle strip. The tabula was not concerned with geographical accuracy. It was focused on logistical clarity. Distances were carefully noted in Roman miles between major cities and rest stops, mansions. Cities were represented by small stylized drawings, 2 towers for a town of importance, a small stylized arch for a major port. This visual language was not designed to show you what the landscape looked like, but how the journey flowed. Following the lines on the tabula was like tracing the path of a slow, predictable river. The roads were depicted in red ink, emphasizing their importance as the primary arteries of movement. Mountains and seas were often simplified or distorted, allowing the road, the central focus of Roman organization, to take precedence. The user of this map was interested in only one thing in the sequence of rest stops and the distance between them. This emphasis on sequence and distance spoke volumes about the Roman attitude toward travel. It was a matter of quiet, managed logistics, not adventurous exploration. A journey was a series of known predictable steps, travel for X miles. Rest at this mansio, continue for I miles to the next change point. The map provided the ultimate guarantee of certainty and removed the psychological stress of the unknown. Another form of map was the itinerarium Antonini, a simple quiet list. This was essentially a road book, a catalog of cities and stopping points along the roads, listing them sequentially with the distances noted in Roman miles. This written form was perhaps even more portable and less visually distracting than the tabula, allowing the traveler to simply read the path forward, step by gentle step. These documents demonstrated a profound turning point in the Roman mindset. They showed that the physical act of building the road had been internalized into a systematic, documented infrastructure of control. The empire knew its paths, knew its distances, and could plan its quiet movements with precision. Whether for official business, the transport of the military, or the slow tide of commerce, the maps were the distant dreams of the engineers and the agrimensors finally brought together. They were the silent echo of every straight line sighted by the groma, every distance measured by the knot cord, and every stone laid with patient care. They were the inventory of peace, a visual confirmation that the empire was linked by an organized, predictable network. As we conclude this chapter, imagine a traveler resting by a low fire, unrolling a section of the tabula. His finger traces the red line of the road, moving past stylized mountains and softly marked rivers, confident in the gentle pace of the journey ahead. The road may be far-reaching, but its path is known and its surface is steady. Time moved with a slow, quiet turning, and the world subtly transformed. As the great empire slowly dissolved, not with a sudden crash, but with a gradual, gentle decentralization, the vast road system entered a long phase of soft decay. Yet its influence did not vanish. The paths simply changed their purpose and pace, becoming the quiet footprints for the ages that followed. During the subsequent centuries, the massive centralized maintenance system of the old power ceased. Without the constant, steady breath of repair, the roads began to yield to the patient work of nature. Where once the ditches were carefully cleared, now they filled with silt and debris, allowing water to soften the unseen foundations. Trees and vegetation slowly pushed their way through the cracks in the paving stones, lifting and separating the carefully fitted surfaces. However, the deep foundations, the statumen and rudis layers, were built with such quiet strength that the lines of the roads never truly disappeared. They remained even when hidden by earth and growth, a steady subterranean presence. The people of the following centuries, traveling across the fragmented landscape, had little choice but to follow the traces of the old, reliable lines. The great straight paved path, once a wide avenue of commerce, often narrowed into a single soft trackway. The wide stone surface was now too broken and uneven for heavy carts, but the track often remained the driest, most predictable way through the landscape. The road was stripped of its political significance, becoming simply the most reliable way to move from one point to another. It became a quiet gift from the past, used out of pure necessity and logistical wisdom. The old stone markers, the miliaria, were often repurposed. Sometimes they were broken up for building material, but just as often, they were reused as boundary stones or religious markers, their Roman inscriptions fading beneath new symbols. They continued to serve as anchors of place, quietly defining the landscape, even in their altered state. In this era, These ancient paths were primarily used for pilgrimages and local communication. The movement was slower, quieter, and more localized than in the imperial age. The paths connected monasteries, small feudal towns, and regional markets, allowing for the slow, gentle exchange of culture and goods that defined the period. The enduring memory here is one of persistent wisdom. Even in their decline, the ancient roads imposed a basic organization upon the landscape. They showed that a path of stability, once built with true intention and deep foundation, will continue to serve long after the governing power has receded. They were not monuments to a fallen empire, but quiet footprints that softly guided the next 1,000 years of European life. Time moved on without haste, and the world transformed again. Yet even as the speed of traffic increased and modern vehicles replaced the slow carts, the ancient paths retained their most enduring and unseen legacy. They became the quiet blueprint for the transportation networks of the current day. Imagine the modern highways wide and fast, where movement is quicker and often louder. When you look closely at a map, or even feel the uncompromising straightness of certain major European routes, you are quietly following an ancient alignment. Many modern highways, particularly in Italy, France, and Britain, were constructed directly upon or immediately adjacent to the firm foundations of the buried Roman paths. This is not a mere coincidence. Centuries later, when modern engineers needed to chart new paths, they realized that the old road builders had already found the most logical and logistically efficient routes. Constructing a new road required significant effort and expense to survey, overcome obstacles, and avoid soft-yielding land. But if an old Roman route existed, it had already solved those problems silently millennia before. The deep, stable foundations of the Roman design had created a naturally stable and well-drained strip of land through all those ages. This made rebuilding upon the existing roadbed far easier and more cost-effective than starting anew on unsurveyed wet or challenging terrain. What the Romans called the agger, the raised embankment, still served as a dry spine elevated above the water table. In many instances, archaeological surveys have confirmed that modern vehicles are tracing a route only a few feet away from the original paving stones, with the ancient line still serving as the functional spine for regional road networks. The shadow of organization has extended across millennia. Imagine a driver crossing a vast stretch of countryside at night. Their headlights briefly catch an old Roman milestone, perhaps restored, and standing at the edge of the modern highway. This ancient millenarium no longer measures distance in Roman miles, but it remains an unobtrusive reminder of perseverance. It whispers, "This is the traveled path." This safety and straightness are a deep inheritance. This continuity is a quiet lesson in unyielding persistence. It shows that when an idea is executed with deep foresight, with firm underlying layers and a straight intention, it will outlast the changes of dynasties and technology. The Roman path has become a geological feature inseparable from the landscape itself. Even as you close your eyes and let your breath slow, you can visualize the soft contrast beneath the smooth, modern asphalt. The large, cool, polygonal stones still rest quietly, supporting all the movement of the world, a promise of organization held fast through eternity. As the final quiet echoes of the Roman past receded, the true and lasting legacy of the road builders revealed itself. They were, in effect, gentle sages, not through philosophical writings, but through the material wisdom embedded in the stone and gravel. Their enduring gift was not one of conquest, but one of profound, lasting organization and peace. The road builders, the engineers, the agrimensors left behind a quiet, permanent instruction. For all who followed that order precedes endurance. They taught the world that the most successful and lasting systems are those built with patience, deep preparation, and a commitment to the simplest, most effective line. The straight path was their most powerful sermon, whispered across the centuries. Imagine these quiet thinkers. They understood that a stable infrastructure fostered a stable society. The predictability of the road removed a great deal of the anxiety and struggle inherent in the ancient world's movement. Knowing that grain would arrive, that a message would be delivered, and that a journey could be completed without unnecessary hardship, created a foundation of societal calm. The very process of building the path imparted this lesson in gentle organization. It required standardization and the use of common measurements, the systematic layering of materials, and the adherence to a universal design principle. This consistency meant that a traveler stepping onto a road in any far-flung province felt the same reliable ground beneath their feet. This shared physical experience was a unifying force, an anchor of the empire's organizational peace. The paths proved that great strength does not always come from massive visible structures, but from the unseen depths. The statumen and the rudus and the hidden foundation layers were the true sources of their 1,000-year life. They quietly demonstrated that a failure to prepare the foundation leads to inevitable collapse, a soft, enduring metaphor for the long view. The entire system became a quiet template for future large-scale projects. It was the first instance where a vast, unified infrastructure was built purely for public benefit and administrative ease. This concept of centrally planned, durable public works was a profound contribution that shaped subsequent civilizations' approaches to logistics and national cohesion. Even in the quiet decay of the late empire, the paths maintained a sense of human dignity. They kept communication lines open, allowing cultures and ideas to continue to flow, preventing total fragmentation. They were the gentle threads that held the remnants of the world together. The road builders were the gentle sages who built not just for their lifetime, but for the entire arc of history that would follow. They looked at the landscape and saw not just obstacles, but clear pathways waiting to be smoothed and stabilized. They responded not with aggression, but with the quiet, persistent application of stone and geometry. The final trace of their wisdom lies in the deep, quiet trust the road instilled. To travel the ancient path was to trust the unseen layers beneath, to trust the steady hand of the surveyor, and to trust in the promise of the straight line. This legacy of trust, built patiently in stone, remains the most beautiful soft echo of their contribution to the world's long, quiet slumber. We arrive now at the quietest moment of our journey, the gentle conclusion of the road's long story. The vast Roman road network, once a restless system of movement and communication, has settled into a state of eternal slumber, its presence often unseen, but profoundly felt. Imagine the roads not as historical artifacts, but as a deep, quiet energy that continues to stabilize the landscape. They are the unseen presence of the stone lying beneath fields and forests, occasionally exposed by the turning of a plow or the gentle erosion of a riverbank. When you touch one of these old paving stones, you are touching a connection point that once spanned an entire civilization, now resting in profound silence. The ultimate legacy of the Roman road is its role as a silent anchor. In a world that constantly changes, where borders shift, languages evolve, and technologies flash and fade, the lines of the old roads remain. They are a constant reference point, a testament to the fact that patient engineering can transcend the fleeting concerns of humanity. This deep rest of the road system teaches us about enduring form. The roads proved that the most durable systems are those that are simple, logical, and built with respect for the physical laws of drainage and load distribution. They did not need complex machinery or loud proclamations. They needed only quiet intention and the steady rhythm of labor. The straight lines that guided the flow of the empire now guide the flow of water beneath the earth, ensuring the long-term drainage and stability of the surrounding land. The robust foundations once meant for military boots and heavy carts now provide subterranean support to the quiet growth of trees and the gentle structure of modern life above. The road system in its eternal slumber invites us to find peace in organization. It assures us that even the largest, most complex challenges can be overcome by breaking them down into small, predictable, and repeatable steps. Each paving stone, each layer of gravel, each mile marker was a dedication to this quiet, methodical approach. As we conclude our tracing of these ancient, gentle journeys, we realize the road is no longer about speed or distance. It is about memory and stillness. It is the memory of steady footsteps, the cool touch of night air, the smell of damp earth after rain, and the faint glow of lanterns at a distant mancio. It is the stillness found in knowing that beneath the surface chaos of the world, there are deep, organized lines of stone that still hold true. Let the final image of the night be the old stone road bathed in moonlight, stretching infinitely into the silence. It is still strong and deeply asleep, offering its steady, peaceful presence to the night. In this quiet journey tonight, we drifted through the gentle echoes of the entire history of the Roman road system, from their earliest beginnings as a vision of permanence to the soft traces they leave behind beneath the modern world. Allow the thoughts of straight lines, deep foundations, and steady rhythms to settle gently in your mind. There is no urgency in history. There is only the slow, continuous flow of time. Feel the stability of the stone beneath your imagination, grounding you in quiet safety. If this peaceful journey brought you ease, you may leave a soft like, or whisper in the comments where you'd like to drift next. And now, let the night grow still. Let your breath slow. May sleep come softly and carry you into peaceful rest. Good night.